breaking free from comparison for enhanced self-esteem. So I can remember about 3 or 4 years ago, I was scrolling through Instagram, and at this time, I was just at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. So as a result, I started to follow a lot of the influencers that maybe you follow. And I remember when I was following these guys, I would sit back and I would notice all the things that they were doing. I was noticing all the content they was putting out. I was noticing all the places they were going. And I was also noticing the money, the cars, the houses, all the big flashy things. I noticed that they were able to achieve these things. And what that started to do to my confidence is that I started to dwindle. It started to just kind of fall by the wayside, even though I was already very accomplished in my career. I've got a master's degree. I was working in the high school setting, which was something that at the time was a goal of mine. And I was making okay money, right? I wasn't making a lot of money. As you know, educators, they don't make a lot of money here in the States. But nonetheless, life was okay. Plus, I was living in Miami. It was my dream. So things on the outside was looking good. But somehow, some way, I was convinced that I wasn't doing enough. And it started to eat away at me. It started to make me feel a little down on myself, I'll even say maybe even a little depressed. And as you know, people who scroll through Instagram, a lot of them tend to scroll when they're feeling depressed. And the only thing that does is it makes them more depressed. So I can remember following these guys scrolling. And I remember one day just kind of having this epiphany. The epiphany was that these guys were in the entrepreneurship game for 10, 20, maybe even some of them 30 plus years. And here I am, not even 6 months into entrepreneurship. And I'm thinking, hey, why does my business not look like theirs? Why does my lifestyle not look like theirs? And I started to get real down on myself. But when I had that epiphany, I realized that I was comparing my day one, or at that time it was probably day 29, if you will, to someone's year 29. And as you can see, I was only doing myself a disservice by doing that. So once I realized that the race that I was in was not the same race that they're in, it kind of helped me to be a little bit more easy on myself. And I can even put it to you like this. We were probably in the same race, but the distance that they were at and where I was at was in two different places. And it wasn't because I couldn't get there. It's just because they had more time on this journey than I did. So what I needed to do was actually have a little bit more grace, a little bit more patience with where I was. And that saved me. That actually allowed me to do the work when the work was hard. And that's a big one for a lot of my clients and a lot of people just in general. Can you do the work? Can you show up when the work is hard, when it's not as easy as you originally thought? That is a big question that we need to answer. Now, I'll even tell you this story. And after I do this, I will go into some points that will help you to break free from comparison. But I remember I had another client, right? So I had a client who was a young lady. She was in school. She was in medical school, if you will. And she was doing really well in school. But one thing that really would get to her was when she didn't get up in the morning and do her 5 a.m. routine, which was working out, doing mindfulness, right? Doing journaling, doing yoga, like all the things that TikTok or Instagram tells you that you should be doing. And what she would fall into the trap of is comparing herself to the people that she was following on social media. And if I had to speak to that client again at this time, I would tell them, hey, believe it or not, some of these people actually have teams. They have a team that's helping them to post this content. So I don't want you to think that these people are doing this every single day, posting it every single day, and are essentially perfect. That's one thing that, as you know, social media has the ability to do. It has the ability to show your highlight reel and make it seem as if everything is perfect. One could even say it's like your own personal show, right? Everyone has their own show, which is known as their profile. And you can choreograph what you want to be seen or showed on that show, right? But she couldn't see that. And what was even worse was that she was also comparing herself to her brother, who was also very esteemed in his career and things of that nature. And she stated that it felt like a competition. And as a result, no matter how good she did, she always felt like she wasn't doing enough. Because as you know, there will always be someone richer. There will always be someone that's in better shape, right? Or at least perceived in better shape, perceived as richer, perceived as more beautiful, perceive, right? And you don't get caught up in that game, because once you start comparing yourself based on the materialistic things that are outside of us, you will always find yourself chasing for more, feeling as if you're not enough. And that is a story for a lot of my clients, where they find themselves in this place where On the outside, they're doing good, but they can't see it because they're focused on all the things that they don't have. So what I'm going to do in this podcast is I'm going to go over 3 ways. And actually, I have a bonus for you. I actually give you 4. I'm going to give you 4 ways to actually break free of comparison so that you can start to enhance and build your self-esteem. And before I do that, make sure you subscribe to this channel so they can get more hot podcast topics just like this. So there's this quote by a guy named Epicurus, who is an ancient Greek philosopher. So he says that he who envies others does not obtain peace of mind. And I love that quote because it's so true. You've probably heard this as well, where you've heard comparison is the thief of all joy. And I'll even give you a hint. One of the second points that I'm going to make is how you can actually flip comparison to work for you and not against you. But again, that's something later on in the podcast. But as you know, comparison, it can be the thief of all joy, not just some joy, but all joy. So you want to make sure that you're staying locked in to what you want your life to look like. I can even say this too. This may sound crazy, but even in religious spaces, if you will, I have also seen people become jealous of what some people may feel that God has given other people and not them. So they may be sitting in the audience, right, in the crowd, and they may see that someone's giving a testimony of how they gave a lot of money in offering or tithing or whatever the case it may be. And then God has turned around and blessed them with a new home, a new car, a new job, whatever the case may be. But yet here you are, still struggling, still going through your go-through, as we call it. And you may feel slighted by the man above. So comparison really is the thief of all joy in all spaces if you allow it. So with that being said, let's get to point number 1. So one of the best things that you can do to actually help you to break free of comparison is to believe in God's plan and not your own. Now, as I start this podcast, I do want to say a lot of people that's listening, they have their own versions of who God is. So it could be Brahma, it could be Jesus Christ, it could be Allah, right? It could be the father of Moses or Abraham. So I'm thinking of some of my Jewish listeners. But nonetheless, we all have different versions of God. But there is a silver lining between all these religions, and it's the belief that the man above or the person above is dictating each of your steps. They're in control of where your life is going. In other words, you do not have to lean on your own understanding because there's someone that has a greater understanding of where you should be. And that's actually a great Bible verse. So I am a Christian. So if I have any listeners that are of other religions, please don't take offense to this. I just want you to listen to the words that at least the Bible says. And I would even say this, if you are of a different religion, please comment below a scripture within your Bible, your book, that helps to decide or tell you how to overcome things like comparison. But in the Bible, so Jeremiah 29:11, which is a very famous verse, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So if I believe that, I believe that there's something for me down this path that I'm going down. And if I truly, truly believe that, I will have trust and faith in that. And when you have trust and faith in your path, it helps you to not be so consumed by other paths. Because one can also say that if you follow your path, it will lead you to the joy and happiness that is for you. Because the thing that I see people run into is that they will chase a goal, but at the same time, they'll find themselves still unhappy because the goal that they chase wasn't for them. So a great example may be an advanced degree, and maybe it's a medical degree, right? So becoming a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, when really you want to be in the arts, right? You want to do something creative with your passion. And that is just one example. You know, even the idea of having a family, which is something that is very pushed, definitely here in the States and probably in other cultures, right? And when I say having a family, I should probably be more specific, like being married, having the White House, the white picket fence, right? 3 kids or however kids you want to say. For some people, that may not be their goal. And I can even say like this, that may be their goal, but it's not their goal before age 30. Me being from the South, those were the things people told you, hey, if at age 23 or 24, if you don't have it, you're behind. But think about that, right? Like if that's not for you and you try to force it, the only thing that's going to leave you with is resentment. So again, how do you break free of this comparison? Instead of focusing on what God has done for other people, focus on what God is doing for you. Focus on your journey, your path. And also, as I said, don't lean on your own understanding. Sometimes we don't know why we're at where we're at. But something that I will say is that you are exactly where you need to be in order to get to where you want to go. You're exactly where you need to be at this moment to get to where you want to go. Have faith in that, and it'll help you to stop focusing on other people's path and start focusing on your path. Main point number 2. So the second best way to help you to break free of comparison and to actually help you to build your self-esteem is to actually make comparison work for you. And I'll tell you how to do this. So when it comes to pain and our values, these things are deeply connected. You can't have one without the other. It's only when we lose something that we care about that we feel pain. And we can only feel pain if we lose something that we deeply, deeply care about. This is why you see people cry at funerals, right? Like that is the only reason why. It's because someone that you love is gone. And that grief is a sign of the things that you value, the love that you have for that person. Even one day in church, we recently had someone pass, and a message that the pastor had on the screen is that grief is the price we pay for love. Now, if you don't want any love in your life, right? If you don't want any grief in your life, you have to get rid of the other. So if I don't ever want to experience grief, what I need to do is get rid of all the love that I have for the people close to me. But think about how much fun that would be. It wouldn't be, right? You'll probably find yourself struggling. And here's the thing. You may try to replace some of that with love of things like money, or it can be, possessions. So cars, clothes, jewelry, or, just having random hookups and random sex and all that stuff. Like you may try to fill that void with those things, but that, my friend, will be a bottomless pit. And I do not want you to fall down that. So again, you can flip comparison to work with you because pain and values are deeply connected. The next time you're scrolling through Instagram and you find yourself jealous of something, or if you're walking through the streets, you're at work, or even at a friend's event, and you find yourself feeling jealous, comparing yourself, right? Ask yourself, what is it that you find yourself upset about? What is it that you feel that you wish you had, right? So an example would be if you're going through the mall and you see a couple holding hands while holding their infant son, and you find yourself going, dang, like I really want that, right? Or maybe it's a different thought that you have. Maybe you have the thought of, who do these people think they are? Life isn't so happy. Life isn't so jolly, right? What do they have to be all happy about? If you're having thoughts like that, that would tell me that deep down, you probably want a family. There's something within that structure, that dynamic that you're missing. And you're up here wishing that you had those things. So what we want to do is we want to take that comparison. We want to ask ourselves, what is it that we're comparing ourselves about? What is it that we feel that we're lacking or missing? And then start to set goals towards those things. Now, something that you have to be careful about when you do this is that you need to make sure that the things that you're comparing yourself to, the goals that you're setting, that these are values that you personally have, okay? Because again, you could chase a goal and accomplish that goal, and it can actually do more damage than good, okay? So again, when you're comparing yourself, ask yourself, what is it about this comparison that I'm feeling like I'm not having, that I feel that I'm lacking? And then you could set a goal and ask yourself, what is it that I need to accomplish to have this thing? Now, the best thing that I can tell you too is that the value that's there may look different. So the example that I gave is if you see a couple with an infant son, right? So you see a family, you may say to yourself, man, I want to have some type of companionship. That doesn't have to mean that you go out, you have a family, have a kid and things like that. This may mean that, hey, you need to go back and rebuild the bonds with your own personal family. Or maybe this means that, hey, we should probably go out and start trying to make friends versus staying inside playing video games, basically being a turtle all day. So what we want to do is we want to ask ourselves, what is the thing that we're looking for? And how does that look in our life? Okay. Because you do not need to mimic word for word, image by image what someone has. That's actually a very inauthentic way to live your life. Now, I'll give you another thing as well. And this one may be more on the business side, but you can use it professionally. Even my athletes, they can take this. So I want you to check this out. So anything performance related, it is actually very helpful for you to compare yourself to someone that's doing great in your field, because clearly there's something that they're doing that you're not doing. So for me, when I looked on Instagram and things like that, and I saw people that were doing really well with their business, one thing that I noticed was that they were running ads. But in addition to them running ads, they also had a team. So they weren't doing all the content by themselves. They had a team that was basically pumping out the content, doing some of the micro tasks or the administrative tasks for them so that they can stay doing the main thing that's bringing in the customers. Okay. So when I saw that, a light bulb went off and it said, hey, I need to be doing these things. Even with the books that some of the people are reading. And actually, I would tell you, if there's someone that's successful in your business, in your career field, ask them what books have they been reading lately to help them to get them to this place? What courses have they taken to help them to get them to this place, right? These are the helpful questions and the helpful ways that you can compare yourself to other people. So I don't want you to think that comparison should be and can be all bad. I can even say this and then I'll move on to point number 3. People who already have a healthy level of self-concept, self-esteem, self-acceptance. So people that are confident in themselves already, they can look at comparison and not feel threatened by it. They can look at comparison and not feel threatened by it. So what I want you to do again, and then we'll move on to point number 3, take time to notice why you're upset, why you're comparing yourself. What is it that you find yourself jealous about? And then start setting goals around those things. But again, these goals still need to be aligned with your values. Point number 3 to help you to break free from comparison is to actually practice gratitude. Now, this gratitude word, we've all heard it, and you know this is something that you should be doing, but it may not be something that you do consistent enough to really reap the rewards of gratitude. Gratitude is something that should be a daily practice. And I'm going to give you one way to do it. There's so many ways, but I'll give you a quick way to do this. And you can do this from your phone, or you can take out a sheet of paper and pen, and you can do it like that. So this is a 3-step process. And what I have my clients do is in the first step, I have them write down at least 3 values that they deeply, deeply appreciate themselves for having. So for me, that's my value of hard work, my value of curiosity, and then also my empathy, right? Like I feel as though I have a good way of connecting with people. So those are my 3. What I want you to do right now is I want you to write down 3 values about yourself that you deeply appreciate. It's things that you're grateful for having. All right. So you're going to write that down. All right. Point number 2, step number 2, and feel free to hit pause so you can actually write this down and think about it and then hit play when you're ready. But step number 2, and I love this step, you need to write a few words of thanks to yourself for having these values, right? I really want you to write this as if you're writing it to a friend. So in other words, write it in the third person perspective, saying you, or saying thanks, John, if your name is John, thanks, Sally, if your name is Sally. But write a letter to yourself, thanking yourself for having these values, and you can even write about a time that this value has gotten you out of a bind, out of a pickle, has helped make your life easier as a result of having this value. For me, my value of curiosity has actually helped me to build my business because I'm always looking for something new, and I'm also open to new ideas and even open to my own corrections. So if someone comes and tells me, hey coach, like you're not doing this well, you're not doing that great, like I'm open to that advice. And that helps me to become better as a therapist and an entrepreneur. So write down a few words of thanks for each of these values. Now, step number 3, what you're going to do is you're going to write down the names of a few people that you actually would love to thank for either modeling this value or teaching you that this value is important. So for me, some of these people, they're actually behind me. So Kobe Bryant, he is someone that is the epitome of hard work. Every video, every commercial, or every highlight, every interview that you've seen, he's always talking about how he's pushed himself, how he's never been afraid of hard work, right? Like he's the epitome of unlocking your full potential. And that is where I get my value of hard work. When it comes to another value that I have, which is skillfulness, okay? Skillfulness. So I love being really good at something. I get that from Denzel Washington. So this guy on my right. Denzel by far is the best actor of all time. And what makes him great is that he can become so many different characters in so many different movies. Like I've seen him obviously play Malcolm X, where he absolutely brought Malcolm X back to life when he played that movie directed by Spike Lee. And then you'll see him in a movie like Training Day. So he went from being a good guy to being the bad guy, right? And he played both of those roles flawlessly, right? And then there's so many other movies outside of that. But Denzel is someone that is very skilled at his craft, and I admire that. So what I want you to do is write down the names of the people that has either modeled these values to you or has taught you, literally sat down and taught you these values. And I want you to write these down. The reason why we're doing this is because we want to take time to appreciate what we bring to the table. So many other things that we see outside of us, yeah, people may be doing great in their businesses, careers, relationships, or what have you, but you're also doing great as well. There's also something that you bring to the table that is one of a kind, that is very unique, and I need you to honor that. But to honor that, you first have to become aware of it. So that was an easy 3-step process to help you practice gratitude. And this is the third step that's going to help you to break free of comparison, because you're actually falling back in love with you. You're thanking yourself. You're having gratitude. You're being appreciative of the person that you are. Point number 4 that I want to make here is that you need to make your journey interesting, okay? Make your journey interesting. This is a great way to help you to overcome comparison. And the reason why is because when you're so engaged with what you're doing, when you're so in love with it, when you're so challenged by what you're doing, you're having fun. You're having a blast. Like there are times when I'm literally watching NFL football on a Sunday, if what have you, and I'm so engaged by what's happening that I'm not really focused on what's happening on Instagram, Twitter, or sometimes like my wife or my son. Don't tell them I said that. But I'm so engaged by what's happening here that everything else kind of falls in the background. You may see this also too when you're watching a great movie, right? Or when you're playing a video game, or maybe solving a puzzle. In other words, when you're fully engaged into something, right? When something has your full undivided attention, it's very hard for you to take your eyes off it and then be focused on something else. So once you start to make your life, your journeys challenging, interesting, and you do that by trying something new, okay? Also, what you need to do is have a good idea of what you're good at and what you're not so good at. And what you can do is start to challenge yourself just a little bit beyond what you think you're good at. So let's just take exercising. If you're someone who typically runs a mile in, let's say, 9 minutes, let's see if we can do it in 8 minutes and 30 seconds, right? Or maybe 8 minutes flat, right? I need you to make these little challenges to yourself, and then you start to make it a game, okay? So what I want you to do is to be so engaged with your life that you actually feel cheated when you're not focused on it. And to this day, that is how I feel about my business. To this day, what helps me to not be so distracted by what all these other people are doing on social media is that my business is just continually to improve little by little. And even right now, I'm working on a webinar, and this webinar is about 250 slides long. And right now, it has my full undivided attention, because by taking my eyes off of it and doing something totally different, I would be doing a disservice to all the hard work that I've already put in. So I want you to become almost, we can say, addicted to your own life. And you do that by just simply making it interesting and by challenging yourself. All right, so point number 5. And, I know I said I had 4, but, I feel like you guys deserve to hear this 5th one because you made it this far to the podcast episode. So point number 5, and I'm actually going to start off by telling a quick story. So one night, me and my wife, we were sitting around, and we got a text from our pastor, and he said, "Hey guys, we're having this event at our house. Come through. We're going to have, pizza and, chips and soda and, snacks and all this other stuff. Like, come over, have a good time with us." And we're typically homebodies. So, we typically stay in. We don't really go out too much. But, our pastor asked us to go. So we said, you know what, why not? So we packed up our car. We, packed up our son as well, put him in the car with us. And we went over there, and we had a great time. But something that was really, really great, something that was really, really fun was the discussions that we had. And one of the discussions was led by a question that he asked us. And I'm also going to ask you this question as well. So the question that he asked us was, if you walked into a room with 1,000 people, what would you say is the number one thing that you're the best at? And I thought, whoa, that's a big question. That is a very, very big question. And I say that because for me, I'm a very humble person. And for you, you're probably a humble person as well. One may even say bashful or shy, right? You don't like to brag about yourself. But this was a challenge that he gave us, right? So if you walked into a room, what would you say is the number one skill that you're the best at, better than everybody in the room? And I sat and I thought about it. And humbly, I said, I feel like I'm the best at getting people from point A to point B. whatever that case may be. In other words, helping people to reach their goals is something I feel that I'm really great at. And that felt really, really good to say. I was a little bashful at first, a little shy, but after saying it, I started to have this deeper appreciation for who I am and for what I do. And that's going to be my question to you as well. If you walked into a room of 1,000 people, what would you say is the number one thing that you're better at than anyone in the room? Once you're able to answer that question, it would definitely help you to break free of comparison, because you have this gem that you're so in love with. You have this strength about who you are that you're just amazed by. And that's what I want you guys to focus on. What's that number one skill that you bring into the room that no one can duplicate? And that will help you to break free of comparison, and it will also skyrocket your self-esteem. So with that being said, let me go ahead and refresh or review these 5 main points that I made that's going to help you to break free of comparison and also help you to build your self-esteem. So the first point that I made was to believe in God's plan and not your own. So believe that there's someone upstairs directing your steps. And if I believe in who they are, I also believe that they cannot lead me astray. So focus on your path. Focus on the path that they have for you, if you will. Point number 2 is that you can also flip comparison to work for you. So when you're finding yourself comparing yourself, ask yourself, what is it that I'm looking at that I'm finding myself jealous of? What is it that I'm looking at that I want? Also, if you're in a professional or a performance-based career, a hobby, or business, you can also use this to help you to build your own business or your own performance, even if it's at work, by looking at what the people that are killing the game, look at what they're doing, and then start to implement that into your daily routine. Third, practice gratitude. Fourth, make your journey interesting, and challenging. And then fifth, as I mentioned, make sure that you get honest with about what you bring into the room that you feel that you're the best at. If you're able to do that, trust me when I say you will break free your comparison and you start to build that self-esteem. So this is Coach Wells. I'm a licensed therapist. Thank you for checking this out, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. All right, I'll see you later.